Alright, let's talk about Outer Worlds 2. It has been some time since I played The Outer Worlds, that is the first game of the series. In fact, I have played it 3 times. 2 times when the game actually came out, and the third time when all the DLCs were available, in the Spacer's Choice edition. It was a breath of fresh air back in the day, particularly when we take into account the state of Fallout franchise and the colossal diarrhea that was Fallout 76. In fact, Fallout New Vegas was the last game that was pretty good, and Outer Worlds made a decent effort matching that feeling, especially since it was Obsidian that made New Vegas. I say decent because the game didn't fully live up to the expectations that many people had when the direct comparison with the New Vegas was made. It was smaller in scope and gameplay mechanics weren't that complex. Still, it had a very good foundation and the sequel was bound to happen. It was just a matter of time. Well, now that time has come. I'd like to point out that I remember a decent number of things about the first game, but not to a level of detail that I would be comfortable to speak in comparison to the second game. In that sense, I won't be making direct comparisons that much with the second game in this video, since it feels like I wouldn't be up to my standard. The game will be analyzed mostly on its own for this particular video, and then I will replay the first game and make a separate video in order to fully analyze both of the games. That would be a perfect opportunity to see what was improved in the second game and whether or not the second game learned the lessons from the first one. As always, a small introductory what the game is all about, and then I will analyze each aspect of the game. So, The Outer Worlds 2 is an action role-playing game developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Xbox Game Studios. You play as an agent of the Earth Directorate sent to investigate mysterious rifts in the fabric of space and time in the colony system known as Arcadia. These space-time rifts are destabilizing the colony. You must navigate the politics, the factions, your companions, and the morally gray areas of your environment in order to unearth the truth. Just for the reference, this is what I did in the game. I played the game on normal, and it took me around 42 hours to finish all the quests that I could find, except the ones that are flagged as collectible quests. I was level 30, I had invested 2 points into sneaking, 14 in lockpicking, 14 into hacking, 8 into engineering, 12 into observation, and 14 in speech. My background was Lawbringer, brilliant, lucky, and sickly were my traits, and my flaws were overprepared, gluttony, drug addiction, and dangerously curious. I didn't have any bugs, and the game ran well for me on medium settings. Before I start, there will be timestamps in the description so you can skip things that don't really interest you, since this is going to be a long one. The graphics of The Outer Worlds 2 mark a clear step up from the original, driven largely by its move to Unreal Engine 5, which gives the game a noticeable modern foundation. Environments are the standout element, large, highly detailed, and built with a strong art direction that leans into the series' retro-futuristic identity. Wide vistas show off sharp textures, long draw distances, and lighting that reacts convincingly across different biomes and times of day. The result is a world that feels far more alive and visually ambitious than anything in the first game. Visual effects as atmospheric fog, particle effects, and environmental details, plants, breeze, structural materials, all contribute to a sense that each area has its own unique mood and density. Where the game shines most is in its cohesion. The artistic style does a lot of heavy lifting, giving even less complex scenes a memorable personality without relying solely on raw realism. Not everything holds up equally though. While the environments look fantastic from most angles, close-up character presentation is more mixed. Facial animations, lip sync, and some texture work on NPCs lag a bit behind the quality of the world around them. During dialogue scenes, for example, you might notice stiff expressions, less detailed facial rigs, or models that simply don't match the level of polish seen in top-tier RPGs. It doesn't break the experience, but it's noticeable, especially given how good the environments can look. Interior areas can also vary in quality, with some locations feeling richly crafted and the others looking sparse or rushed in comparison, or simply plain and boring. Overall, I would say The Outer Worlds 2 offers a strong visual package defined by excellent art direction and a tangible sense of style. It's a game that often looks genuinely striking when viewed in motion or from a distance, even if it can stumble in close-up presentations. For players with strong hardware, it can be a visually impressive experience. For everyone else, however, it's still a notable improvement over the first game, though one that sometimes shows the limits of its engine and production scale. Audio and soundtrack in The Outer Worlds 2 work quietly but effectively to deepen immersion and underscore the game's tone. From the moment you hear the main menu theme, there is a sense that developers did more than simply layer music beneath gameplay. They crafted an auditory identity for the world. I found myself whistling the main theme quite often, but also the jingles from the previous game. In addition, the game's in-universe radio system is a standout. You'll tune into original songs, load in propaganda and radio dramas tied to the major factions, all written and built specifically for this title. The fact that these tracks are bespoke rather than easy licensed music means the audio never feels out of place. It always reinforces the game's alternate history and retro-futuristic setting and the competing ideologies within it. The soundtrack also shows awareness of when to step forward and when to fade into the background. In high-stakes battles, you'll get sweeping orchestral bursts that heighten tensions. In quieter exploratory moments, the score smartly recedes, letting ambient sound and voice acting carry the weight. While the music may not be instantly hummable or linger in your memory as game-defining tunes, it does its job of elevating scenes without drawing attention to itself. The ambient and sound design deserves mention too. Footsteps, weapon fire, environmental audio all combine to make the world feel lived in. Where the audio department shines is in how it merges with world building. The radio broadcasts don't just play music, they comment on your actions, reflect faction changes, and reinforce the lore in subtle way. The editing between music, voices, and ambient sound is generally well handled. Even large crowds or explosion-heavy scenes remain clear thanks to the smart balancing of layers. On the downside, if you are expecting iconic music tracks that stand out beyond the game, you might feel slightly underwhelmed. Some tracks slip into the fitting but forgettable category rather than becoming classics. There won't be any spoilers regarding the story because I think that spoilers are very nasty and so unnecessary, and it just robs you from this unique experience that you can only experience once. So that being said, I will be just talking about general stuff in the story and the feeling that I had about the level of quality of the said story. So let's get on with it. The story of Outer Worlds 2 takes place in the distant colony system of Arcadia, a sprawling frontier. You play as an agent of the Earth Directorate sent in to investigate a series of mysterious rifts that threaten to destabilize the entire colony. Along the way, you find that once orderly settlement is locked in a bitter three-way power struggle. The authoritarian protectorate, trying to maintain control, the mega corporation Antichoice, seeking to capitalize on chaos, and the religious scientific order of the Ascendant, who believe the rifts signal a cosmic reckoning because why wouldn't they? From the outset, the game presents you with a layered premise. Not only are you investigating a destructive anomaly, you are thrust into a web of ideological conflict. The rifts are more than plot device. They symbolize the breakdown of system, trust, and purpose. As you progress, you engage with each faction, choose who to support or undermine, gather companions whose agendas intertwine with yours, and confront the big question. When the fabric of space and society is tearing, how much freedom, how much sacrifice, and whose vision do you choose to follow? The setting itself echoes the first game's themes of corporate dominance and frontier colonization, But here the stakes are broader, the scale larger, and the moral ambiguity deeper. However, while the bones of the narrative are rich, the creeping feeling of familiarity kicks in. You see, if you take the first game into account, which inadvertently you simply cannot ignore, particularly if you played it, you begin to see certain things are very recognizable. On top of that, there are certain tropes that are far too obvious not to notice. For example, when I saw a certain character, I immediately knew what was going to happen. Also, when I confronted that very same character, I knew I would have all too well known options at my hand how to handle the situation. Same thing happened in several other instances. This might not be a problem for you, but for some people it might be same old flavor but with different wrapping. Maybe we have been bombarded by the same themes so many times that we can start recognizing the patterns of the very fabric of every storyline. But you still cannot shake the feeling that there is some predictability present. That doesn't mean that the story is bad, on the contrary, it just means the weight of your choices feels less heavy than you hope, or the path you take seems more guided than truly open. Not to worry, all is not lost because this game is not some linear experience you will go through once and be done with it. We have choices, and they can add the necessary flavor to make the story more interesting. In my case, I decided to do certain things in a way that would create a balance I felt it was very much needed. However, later on, I have noticed that my decisions did not pan out in the way I have hoped for. So, while I speak of some predictability in one aspect of the game, in other situations that predictability might not exist at all because what you think might happen in certain fashion might not transpire at all. In fact, you might end up questioning your decisions to a point of reloading a very early save or simply starting a new playthrough in hopes of fixing what you might messed up. However, Mamba didn't raise no quitter and I finished my game with all the choices I have made, but it definitely made me think and strongly consider starting a new playthrough in order to fix my potential mistake. Or so I might think that was what I did a mistake, because I might end up making even bigger mess. Speaking of the story and the general feeling of the game, it retains some quirkiness and the humor that was experienced in the first one. There were some situations where I just said to myself, okay, so this is a thing, or we are not kink shaming in this household, and that's a great thing because this is exactly what made the first game such a gem. There was one quest where I was genuinely laughing my ass off and I really felt great. But it wasn't as widespread as I thought it might be, so there's that. As far as companions and their stories go, it is all right, as it should be. They are their own people, they can be influenced by your actions and suggestions, but you would have to present a decent argument why you are doing what you're doing, or simply have enough points in a skill, namely speech, in order to push your agenda. It doesn't feel forced, and it feels each companion feels distinct based on their upbringing or their past interactions. They embody the factions, the conflicts, the moral shades of the setting. Picking which companion to bring, who you align with, how you treat them, and what you ask them to do, all of that can have an influence. They might leave you if you do stuff that clashes with their convictions, but I have not experienced that. Either I'm a very likable person or I chose proper dialogue options. Whatever may be the case, I didn't find them annoying or out of place, they just fit right in the overarching story and the setting. When all is said and done, the story gives an average experience of already familiar tropes. However, the main mission of the story is designed to push the burdens of choice on the player, providing a type of setting where choices, that is, your decisions, can shape the future in a direction that is acceptable for you if you made the choices that resonate positively. If, however, you did the opposite, well, that just means you have to live with your choices and eventually accept them. Or it will just motivate you to make another playthrough. And that's what it's all about here. Replayability molded by your decisions. When you look at the story in this manner, you realize that only one aspect is fixed, while the other is ever-changing, and I think, given the fact that this is what this game is all about, is very much acceptable. Gameplay is a major aspect of any game, but here it matters even more, particularly since the game is designed in such a way that one playthrough is not enough. Therefore, you will 100% engage with gameplay aspects of this game more than once, that is more than 40 hours, which is what took me to finish the game, if you are going to complete everything that the game throws at you. When you start the game, you will be faced with a character creator. It always boggles my mind how much time I'm spending making a character, yet I know I will never see its face ever again, or at least maybe 5% of my total playthrough. Thing is, the game has third-person view as well, so I could justify my time wasting, but I always play these types of games in first person. That's why I'm trying to reduce the time spent in the character creator as much as possible. In that sense, character creator is pretty good, there's a decent number of options available, and it serves its purpose pretty well. Next up is background. You get to pick one of 6 backgrounds that will define your character in a sense that you can use them in conversation. There is appropriate time to do so. They seem to be here mainly for role-playing purposes, but also to provide additional information about characters or events. Then we have the traits. Now, they are important because they can influence your experience. There is total 9 of them, and you get to pick either 1 or 2 if you want to adopt a negative trait, which there are 3 in total. Naturally, I went with 2 positives and 1 negative because the reward in this sense is significantly outweighing the risks. Now it is time to choose which skills you are going to start with. These are engineering, explosives, guns, hacking, leadership, lockpicking, melee, medical, observant, science, sneak, and speech. You get to specialize in 2, meaning you get 2 points in those skills, or 3 if you choose the right positive trait, and you are good to go. These skills are used pretty much like you expect. For example, guns increase everything related to guns, leadership boosts your companions, and so on and so forth. The game will give you plenty of things to interact with in order to use them, but they can also be used in conversations too. Alongside the skills, you will have their respective perks, which can be unlocked based on the level of your skill. Most of the perks require a certain skill level to access, while there are some that are independent and do not require any skills to be utilized. During your voyages, you will encounter flaws. Flaws represent perks with negative stats. For example, me being me, I'm reloading my weapon like there's no tomorrow. Well, the game hits me with a flaw called overprepared, which gives me 50% more magazine size, but if I empty the clip completely and reload from scratch, I will have 40% less damage for 8 seconds. So, flaws are perks that give you beefy bonuses, but they also give you a debuff, either a passive one, or like in this example, temporary one, when the conditions are met. There are several of them, and you can refuse them if you want. It all depends on your playstyle and how it can affect your long-term gameplay, because once you accept it, that's it. You can't get rid of them. I like the system a lot because you can really go wild with them and just mess around to your heart's content. All these things are nicely explained and visible in the character UI tab. That tab also has information about your reputation standings with the major factions, with a brief description of the faction and benefits you have attained based on the reputation level. Next tab is reserved for inventory. It is weightless, meaning you can hoard as much items as you want. I like these types of inventory since it reduces time spent dealing with all that clutter you have amassed, but at the same time, more isn't always better when you're trying to find your stuff. Fortunately, you can mark the items you are using the most as favorites, so it helps. I won't go into huge detail what can be found in this particular section or throughout the whole inventory. It's safe to say whatever you pick, it will be there. You just need to find it. The tab after inventory is reserved for map. Then you have the journal tab with all the quests alongside with the codex section, and the radio, which has 3 radio stations for each of the factions you are dealing with. Finally, the last tab is reserved for companions, where you can inspect them and where you can spend perk points they have obtained. Very early in the story, you will gain access to a ship called the Incognito. This is your mobile base, so to speak, where you can interact with your companions, various types of terminals, and a workbench to tinker with your weapons and armor. Speaking of a workbench, it allows you to mod items, craft new items, break down items, and upgrade your companions. Modding an item is fairly simple. You have a predetermined number of mods that you can craft and socket in your items for that specific type of weapon or armor. Some weapons contain 3 mods, some 2, depending what kind of weapon we're talking about. Same thing goes for armor. What is important to notice here is once you craft a mod and slot it in, that's it. You can't extract it, so don't hold back. Keep crafting those mods because they're very useful, especially when it comes to ammo capacity or damage reduction. You can craft ammo as well, which again is very important. Initially, I was struggling with ammo because I was hoarding items and selling them instead of breaking them down for parts. Don't make the same mistake I did. Craft the ammo and don't be shy spending your materials. That being said, there are several ammo types in this game, 10 to be precise. Make sure you know which one you're using the most and stock on it. I previously mentioned things about companions. Well, there's 6 of them. Some of them you get immediately at the start of the game, others you have to find and recruit. You can take 2 with you to adventure together. They have 1 active ability each that can be activated, and these abilities recharge during combat. They have their own backstories, views on life, all that good stuff, so they are your classic RPG companions. They can help you in conversations if you so desire, and if the opportunity presents itself, and they fight for you during the combat situations. Nothing out of the ordinary here, pretty much you've seen this 100 times. Now, combat in this game is pretty straightforward. Since I played the game in first person, it played like a first person shooter. Nothing special there. You whip out your weapon and you start blasting. The weapon variety is pretty decent, and that variety is additionally enhanced with unique weapons that you can find during your journey. In my case, I really much like the unique rifle called the Oracle. If you prefer a melee playstyle, there are melee weapons as well, so whatever makes you happy you can utilize. When talking about your journeys, you will have the opportunity to visit several planets, 4 to be precise. Then there are outposts, various ships and space stations. The planets are pretty decent in size. It doesn't feel like stuff is crammed on them just to serve the purpose for you to complete the quests. They are also quite distinct from each other, and you will 100% recognize them just from a simple screenshot. That type of world building is something that I always liked, and it feels organic when you're interacting with several different environments. Exploration is additionally enhanced with the introduction of verticality, which gives you a new dimension to the whole experience. I found it to be interesting and a bit refreshing. You can't do it as soon as you touch down on a planet. You have to find a specific gadget that will allow you to access double jump. Speaking of gadgets, there are several of them. The slow motion one, or as they call it, tactical time dilation, is back, which is one of 6 gadgets to be introduced. I won't go into great detail what they do because it's a spoiler territory. My experience with them was mixed. I used some of them heavily, while the others are extremely situational. The situational ones feel more like a gimmick, and it seems to me you need to have a specific build and gear in order to fully profit from them. It certainly gives you more options, but sometimes less is more. I would say in general you might use 3 of them regularly, while the other remaining 3 are used only when you actually need them. Still, props to devs experimenting with this. Now, I mentioned combat, companions, crafting, but what about quests? Well, The quests are divided into several categories. You have your main quest, then the secondary quests, tasks, collectible quests, and companion quests. Pretty self-explanatory. Usually, they are mostly structured in this manner. You talk to the NPC, there is something happening in a specific area, you go to that area, you do what needs to be done, and you go back and get your reward. The only difference is with the collectible ones, or collectible quests. They are your typical MMO fetch quests, as in go and collect 10 of these or 5 of those and bring me back these items. Thing is, the items in question are not in a specific area, they are scattered all over the planet. For example, this lady wants me to bring or to gather 10 volumes of this comic book thing. I did my best searching in various locations on the planet as I usually do, but I most certainly did not comb through every single location. These quests do not have a location indicator, so yeah, I'm sorry, lady, but I'm not going to do this for you. Maybe I'm missing on some amazing weapon or whatever, but I just don't find this content engaging. Perhaps in the second playthrough I will dabble with this, given the fact I know what I need to look for, but as of now, no, I don't think I will. One thing I noticed are minor quality of life features. One that impressed me the most is the icon on the minimap indicating any lootable corpse after a firefight, and the disappearance of indication that a container is lootable after you loot it. These small things add a lot if you're being effective with the loot drops and all that good stuff, but also very useful for kleptomaniacs like myself. I simply love looting and stealing everything that isn't nailed down. Now this next section is going to focus on the stuff that I have problems with, and oh my god, there is a lot of them. So let's get started. When talking about skill point limitations, I'm strictly speaking here from my own experience, so keep that in mind. So, you have a total of 64 skill points that you can allocate to yourself. That essentially means you can max 3 skills and you have 4 points as a leftover to dump somewhere else. Considering we have 12 skills, I would summarize this is not enough, and in my opinion it shows that maximizing only 3 skills is dubious at best. Now, we will eventually be able to figure out what are the highest skill requirements for each skill in order to play the game in a way that is the least limiting, or rather most effective, but that just means that the lack of available points to allocate hurts your gameplay experience if you are not following a guide. For example, in most cases, you need speech, lockpicking, and hacking. Say if you dump 18 points in these particular skills, that means you have already reserved 54 points, leaving you with 10 points to allocate somewhere else. Given the fact that some skills are more useful than the others, I would pretty much dump these 10 points into engineering, considering I have observed that there are a lot of jam doors that can be opened in this fashion. This essentially tells me that speech, hacking, lockpicking, and engineering seem to have the most utility, and you are basically forced to pick them in order to achieve the highest utility possible so that your experience can be as fulfilled as much as possible. That to me is a significant shortcoming, because it seems to me the developers made certain skills way too important that at the end of the day the choice is taken away from you, because you will be missing out on a lot of things just because you decided to build your character in a way that speaks to you, rather than what the reality of situation is. You could argue no setup is bad and you can play your character in any way you want. However, I cannot bring myself to think that a character with max leadership, medical, and let's say guns can ever perform better than the one with hacking, lockpicking, and speech, because the trade-off is just not there. To me, given the fact I have played so many games with the same or similar mechanics, stuff that opens containers and doors, as well as things that can be used to persuade people to listen to you, will always have a priority, which effectively means the rest of the game is locked out for me, and I most certainly will never be able to engage with other skills because the fear of missing out is very strong. I could go and do an 180-degree turn and make a character that is completely opposite just for the sake of it, but at the end of the day, I want to have a satisfying experience. It has to be said, like I previously mentioned, that this adds to replayability, which is great, but I can't wrestle the idea of investing into stuff that I know is suboptimal. Again, this is just me and my way of playing the game. What I would do is make sure that you can max out, let's say, 5 skills, which in turn would add a lot more layers to the game. For example, I would have 2 core abilities, let's say hacking and lockpicking, and then for the remaining 3, I would be able to sprinkle in all kinds of stuff, and it would allow me to explore other venues. I could go sneaking or observation along with speech. That would be a pretty neat combo. Or just go leadership, medical, and observation. This way the game would still offer a lot of variety, but it would be more meaningful. Even if I decided to go with 3 core abilities, the game would still have tons of variety. My experience with combat is a mixed one. At the start of the game, I felt pretty weak, underpowered. Everything was slapping me left, right, and center. As I was leveling up and getting closer to the end game, as well acquiring better weapons, I was stronger and more capable of surviving. Problem is, there are underlying issues that linger throughout the game. For starters, you cannot use cover in an effective manner. If you are facing ranged enemies, they can snipe you super easy. There is not a lot of room to hide, and if you are lucky, there might be some cover, but the way to utilize it is so last gen. There is no ability to lean in and lean out of the cover, and to be honest, the way that the enemies are behaving, you actually do need that mechanic in order to be successful tackling them. This wouldn't be a problem if armor or damage mitigation is actually working. If that was the case, I could soak some damage while shooting out in the open, but that's not the case. So you cannot use the cover, and you cannot soak a lot of damage. This is a combo from hell. Mind you, I was using the armor with the most protection available, and I was still finding myself chugging the inhaler like mad in order to survive. Then there are enemies who use melee weapons. These boys are just charging at you like there's no tomorrow. If you're not capable of one-shotting them, they can just zerg you and you're dead. There is no defense against them. You either gun them down as soon as you see them, or you keep backtracking while shooting them, hoping that you can kill them fast enough before you need to reload, or before you run out of space to backtrack to. When you do have decent conditions, as in there's plenty range from you and the melee silent, or there is decent enough cover to hide from ranged enemies, provided you have a good weapon at your hand, combat is not that bad. Still, I am not pleased with how armor works in this game. I believe there is something off with the damage reduction, because if I'm wearing the heaviest armor in the game with 25 armor slapped on it, and I'm still having issues soaking up the damage, it's not me who is the issue, it's the bloody game. The way to offset this issue with the combat is to dish out insane amounts of damage, and then you will feel like stuff is working in your favor, which leads me to believe that combat at this stage is very much unbalanced. Maybe future patches might fix this, as in add more survivability, but right now it is not the best experience out there. I want to be very clear. I am primarily criticizing their gameplay utility. It has nothing to do with their character traits or anything along the way. In fact, like I said before, I'm pretty much okay with their stories, their personalities, all that good stuff. What I'm not happy about is how the companions are designed in a gameplay way. For starters, they are very one-dimensional. What I mean by that is they can either do melee or ranged, not both. They are unable to switch because they only have one type of weapon constantly equipped. In that sense, if I'm a ranged character and I want some kind of meat shield in front of me, I can only choose 2 of the companions that are classified as melee. The rest of them, because of my playstyle, are completely non-existent. For that specific reason, I couldn't use a lot of them unless I was involved in their personal quests. And even then, I always had one companion who was melee-centric, just so I can have someone to remove the heat from me, initiate the combat, or simply occupy the enemies while I'm picking them from the range. I imagine if I was a melee character, I would primarily focus on rage companions because it would be very much crowded in the melee range. Or, considering how the combat in this game works, I would have one rage companion while the other would definitely be a melee one. Next issue is the lack of customization for the companions. I can't equip weapons or armor on them, they are stuck with their own kit forever. What you can do is choose perks for them in order to somewhat change certain aspects of their behavior, but at the end of the day, this is really limiting. I actually don't mind them looking the same all the time, in the visual sense of things. I think it's important for them to retain their identity like that. You can 100% do that with transmog options, and that way I can put gear on them, but they would still retain their signature look, if that's what you're going for. I would even accept them not changing their weapons, but what I don't like is the inability to influence their gear with stat changes or the inability to mod their gear in any way, shape or form. The system that is in place severely reduces my options in terms of customization. Why can't I add more damage reduction to their armor? Or maybe adding some modifiers to their weapons, like increased rate of fire, more weak spot damage? I just don't get it. To me, this lack of customization is the continuation of a worrisome trend that I have witnessed in many games. And to me, especially when it comes to RPGs, this is appalling. What I have in front of me is the following. I have 6 perk points to choose from net total of 12 options, where each choice in its respective level tier is mutually exclusive to one another, and I can upgrade their weapons and armor twice from the available pool of 4 total upgrades with the same exclusivity in place. And that's basically that. And oh yeah, you can't respect them if you for whatever reason messed up your choices. Now we have another problem, which is lack of any kind of orders except them using their companion abilities, or rather you using their companion abilities. Their behavior cannot be influenced. You cannot do anything remotely strategic with them. They see the enemy, they just charge at them like bunch of murderous headless chickens. The enemy is 50 meters away and I'm trying to snipe them from afar? Yeah, right. Not a problem, they will just charge over there to the enemy to be brutally eviscerated. And there's nothing you can do about that. Finally, they are squishy like there's no tomorrow. I don't know if it's just me, but my god, as if they are made out of glass. I would expect melee-centric characters to have better chances of survival, but no. They still die super fast. Also, them being stupid enough to charge into 5 enemies doesn't help as well. Overall, in gameplay terms, when it comes to companion, this is a complete disaster. I didn't expect miracles. I had decent expectations, but my god, they managed to kill everything inside of me with this particular design decision. I just don't understand what is the point of these things. Maybe I'm stupid, but hear me out. It was pretty much at the end of the game where I could do something with them. And by them I mean the rifts. But by that time, I was so powerful, I really didn't need anything that the rifts might give me. Where is the incentive to interact with them? I went back to the planet Eden where I encountered the very first rift. It was in that cave with all the crab people. I completed it, it was some kind of a jumping puzzle, and as I'm making this review, I don't remember what I got from it. I mean, What the hell? However, I do remember a feeling. It was something so insignificant, it immediately dawned upon me I shouldn't go around on other planets in order to do more of these rifts, because there's absolutely no point to do so. Maybe I get an amazing weapon or something like that, but at the end of the day, I just kept asking to myself, why? Why would I revisit these things in the first place? Is it because of some achievement? I don't care about the achievements. What, interact with all the rifts and get that magical 100%? Or perhaps collect whatever is placed in the rifts? I just don't get it. It feels like the whole rift situation was rushed because it doesn't seem to be incorporated well in the world. I always disliked interacting with the elements of the game right when the main quest is about to end, where I absolutely know I won't be needing anything other than what I already have in my inventory or equipped on my character. It feels like a huge missed opportunity. It gives me the same vibe of getting an amazing weapon that I will only use for, I don't know, last 20 minutes or so of my gameplay. And then the only thing that goes through my mind is, why didn't I get to play with this weapon earlier, when there were actually situations that I can utilize it? Maybe in the future, if they release some sort of DLC content, we will be able to interact earlier with the rifts, but I kinda doubt that. Even if the DLC happens, story-wise, it will happen way before we actually get a chance to interact with the rifts. I'd say, or rather I would describe this situation in one word: shame. It's a huge missed opportunity. There are other minor issues that I would like to mention. First, there is no chest aboard the ship where you can dump your items. I assumed it would be in Captain's quarters, but there is none. Maybe I missed it, I don't know. I had loads of unique weapons that I didn't want to break down and I wanted to store them, but that wasn't possible. So they were just sitting there, hanging in my inventory, doing absolutely nothing other than annoy me. Then there's no New Game Plus. It would be nice to carry over the skill points that I have so I can enrich my next playthrough. That would solve a lot of issues with skill points because, effectively speaking, I would have 128 skill points available to play with, which translates into 6 max skills instead of measly 3, which we have now. Also, why are perks locked behind the level of your skills? I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but it limits your gameplay being fluid. If you don't invest 1 point in guns, for example, you can't unlock 4th weapon slot. And there is me wondering how to do it, only to figure out while going through each individual perk. Finally, not being able to reset my skill points is fine, I can live that, but like I said, what about perks from companions? Yeah, your choices matter, but when the companions are so useless, at least give me the chance to mix things up a little bit or see whether or not I can optimize them a bit more so their usefulness increases by a factor of, I don't know, 2. So, now that everything has been said at a very long length and to a most minuscule detail that I can possibly imagine, what can I say about Outer Worlds 2? Well, for starters, I will say I expect certain things to be better, particularly when it comes to aforementioned core mechanics issues. And I certainly didn't expect them to go backwards, to be honest. For example, companion management system is completely dumbed down to the ground. Then, the decision to limit 3 skills to max level is also highly dubious. I don't think it facilitates a lot of build archetypes, if that was the idea behind it. I could be wrong, and I will welcome that with open arms. Thing is, I just don't see it at the moment. Then, there are issues with combat, and the very late to arrive rifts, which bring nothing to the game as a whole. You just touch on that at the last hour of your playthrough, which makes them almost irrelevant as a mechanic or a gimmick. The saving grace for this game might be the choices, or as I like to call them, branching decisions, presented to you, which might facilitate another playthrough in order to see stuff you missed. But that might not be enough because the issues presented in the core gameplay elements will remain there. They won't go away just because you picked one faction over other and the story pushed you in a different direction. Also, some people might feel like the story is nothing special, so that also adds insult to injury. Something that has to be taken into account as well is the price tag. The game is priced at 70 euros or 80 bucks, and I just don't see this game giving you value for money. If you can get it cheaper, then it would be okay, but if I spend that much money on a product and all I get are mixed feelings and frustrations, I just don't see how I could convince someone else to open their wallet and dish out that much money. Also, let's not forget that some people might finish the game in 30 hours or less, so that makes it even worse when you take into account price per hour spent playing. There might not be another 30 hours for you because you just won't engage with the game again. Choices and branching paths be damned. I can say that I will 100% play this game again, but only if I can add myself more skill points. Fortunately, it seems there is a way to do it. People are already creating mods that unlock console commands where you can modify certain attributes of your character, and I fully intend using this so I boost my enjoyment as much as possible. However, this is only for PC players, so guys who are playing it on console are screwed. I went into this game without expectations, and it seems that it was a good idea because if I had any expectation based on the first game, I think the disappointment would be much noticeable. Back in the day, I would replay the earlier title just so I can hype myself, and good thing I didn't because it wouldn't be a great thing. Overall, this feels like maybe above average game with unjustifiable price tag. If you're a die-hard fan of the Outer Worlds franchise, go for it, but if you are not, maybe wait a bit so the price goes down. I really wanted to recommend this game so much, but sadly I just cannot. This is a bummer, but it is what it is. Now, time to replay the first one so I can make a proper comparison with the second one and maybe figure out what went wrong. That's it from me, until the next time.